Good morning. Welcome to the first seminar of the day. I think I'm the one that needs this one the most, how to effectively deal with stress. How many of you were not here last night? Okay. If you missed last night's program and you'd like to see it, it is on YouTube. It is being left up on the church's YouTube channel. Did everybody get a bulletin? Because on the front cover of the bulletin this time, we have a list of the seminar layout. So if you look on there, this meeting right now that's getting ready to start is effectively address stress naturally. For the divine service today, it's going to be preparing the brain for battle. And if any of you are from this church, you're going to know we're running a very, very short service at the beginning. So it's going to be almost 100% Walt. So, and then this afternoon's service is going to be at 3 o'clock. It's on essential oils, and then tomorrow morning it's hydrotherapy. And if you're planning on coming to that, please bring a washcloth because it's going to be some hands-on stuff. So it's going to be good. I believe that's about it. Brother Walt, I got a question for you. We had an individual who was watching on YouTube that had a question. At what time would you like to you want to do that this after this afternoon's meeting? Okay, we will address them, not at this meeting or the next. Probably it'll be either at 3 o'clock or at 10 o'clock tomorrow. We'll address some of those questions. So, all right. I believe that's all I have. I'm going to go ahead, if you would, bow your heads with me so we can have opening prayer. Our kind and loving God and Father which art in heaven. Father, we thank you so much that you have provided so much for us through nature, how you lead and how you have provided all that we really need. Father, we ask that you would bless our minds with clearness and our hearts with a patience to sit before you. We ask that you would teach us. And we're thankful, Father, that you have given all these things to us and that you have told us that the work in the last days will be medical missionary work. And we ask that you would bless us as we endeavor to learn more about what you've created for us, we pray. And we ask that you would anoint Brother Cross, that the words you speak through him today would be yours and not his own, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, good morning, y'all. Good morning. Isn't it a beautiful day? We call it plum purty where I'm from. I was down in Venezuela and I was talking and I said plum in a sentence and the interpreter looked at me and said, "What's plum's got to do with it?" Well, who's coming tomorrow morning for hydrotherapy? So you only have to bring a washcloth because the church said they had plenty of towels in basins, and so we'll be doing other things besides just using a washcloth, but the church didn't have a bunch of washcloths, so if you can bring a washcloth, we can use that. Well, this morning we're going to talk about something, as last night we said it was the number one diagnosis in America, and that's stress. Anybody have stress? We're alive. You know, you're going to have stress. And when we look at stress, there's different kinds of stress. And that's what I'd like to look at this morning. You have acute stress, you have chronic stress. What's the difference? What's the physiological effects on the body? And then look at what do you do to help with that. So let's take a look. Am I hitting the right thing? I don't know. Let me ask these fellas back here.
Yeah.
Is it working now?
It does have a laser pointer as well right there.
Great, thank you. I was at a meeting several years ago with a bunch of physicians, and I asked them, I said, what's the number one diagnosis in America today? And it was heart disease. Well, that is the number one killer in America today. And I asked them, I said, how many of y'all have heart disease? And then I said, how many of y'all have stress? And so definitely, stress is the main issue out there, though it's not the number one killer. Okay, so first we're going to look at effects of stress and anxiety on the body. Then we're going to look at the treatment for stress and anxiety. And a lot of folks, I think we have to understand why we need to do something before we do something. And as you look at making lifestyle changes, is there a reason to do that? Once you see that there is cause, then it helps you better make an informed decision on making those changes. So let's take a look first on the effects on the body. I'll be sitting a little bit today. I've got an issue that just came up, and so it gets a little painful sometimes standing a long time. So I might do a little sitting. The relation which exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. When one is affected, the other sympathizes. The condition of the mind affects the health of the physical system. If the mind is free and happy from a consciousness of right doing and a sense of satisfaction in causing happiness to others, it creates a cheerfulness that will react upon the whole system, causing a freer circulation of the blood and a toning up of the entire body. Am I sitting too close to this speaker? It's got a little feedback. I didn't know if I'm too close. I'm okay? Okay. So I'm going to give you some prescriptions. Do you see any prescription there for stress?
Yeah, right
Yeah. Do you have a consciousness of right doing? Do you ever do things that you know you shouldn't be doing? Sometimes. But if you have a consciousness of treating people right, if you have a consciousness of doing things right, it helps to reduce stress. A great deal of the sickness which afflicts humanity has its origins in the mind and can be only cured by restoring the mind to health. There are very many more than we imagine who are sick mentally. Heart sickness may make many dyspeptics. Now, what's dyspepsia? Stomach problems. Yeah. Anybody ever have stomach problems? Have you ever been really stressed and have stomach problems? Yeah, sure. I remember one time Mary Lou was pregnant with Walter, my oldest son, and I had gone for a meeting with a bunch of administrators, and I stopped by my aunt and uncle before going back to Mary Lou's, and she'd bought her an IROC Z28. How many of y'all remember those cars? Great little cars. I made the terrible decision one time. We were up on the plateau. We had over a foot of snow, and I decided to go over to Gatlinburg. I heard they had more. It was actually 3 feet of snow over in Gatlinburg, and I went over in an IROC. Can you imagine that? Leaving over a foot, going into 3 foot. That car didn't do too good in that. So anyways, I was leaving my aunt's house, and just as I started leaving, it started raining cats and dogs. And I wasn't 2 blocks away, and it was pouring rain. And I came up to a stop sign, put on the brakes, and I just went right through that stop sign. And right in front of the Baptist preacher who was coming to preach that night's program, Sunday night meeting, right on that corner right there. And he T-boned me in my door. And it tore the car up terrible. Nobody's hurt. It was rain, so the car slid real good, and I wasn't hurt. They weren't hurt. So I called my uncle. Well, we didn't have cell phones back then. And so I went to somebody's house and called the police and called my uncle. And so he came over. He was a nurse anesthetist. And he said, son, you're going to have green apple two-step tomorrow. And we talked about green apple two-step last night, a loose stool. And I said, oh, I'm fine. And there's no problem. I'm good. I'm not hurting. He said, trust me, son, you're going to have green apple two-step tomorrow. And what happened the next day? Was my belly upset? Sure it was. I tore up my car. Well, fortunately, I did get a ticket, but I did go to court, And the judge threw it out because when she asked, why did you slide through the intersection, I said, well, the police chief, he slid also into somebody's yard. And she said, Chief, is that true? Yes. What happened? Well, the road's real slick. So you slid, he slid, you're a good driver, Chief. So they threw my ticket out, so I was fortunate there. Yes. So there is a correlation between the brain and the digestive system. And we kind of talked about that last evening. The heart sickness makes many dyspeptics, for mental trouble has a paralyzing influence upon the digestive organs. And it's so true. The brain affects the digestive system. The mind controls the whole man. All our actions, good or bad, have their source in the mind. It is the mind that worships God and allies us to heavenly beings. Yet many spend all their lives without becoming intelligent in regard to the casket, jewel casket, that contains this treasure. What is the most important organ in the body? The brain. Why is the brain the most important organ in the body?
Master control.
Pardon?
Master control.
It runs the body, but most importantly, it's how we communicate with God, and God communicates to us. And so if our brain is stove up, we talked about stove up yesterday. If our brain's stoved up, if it's not running right, can we discern God's word? Not easily. No, correct. And we'll talk more about that at the 11 o'clock hour on how to improve the brain so that we can have better function of the brain, that we can discern God's word. Nine-tenths of all disease from which men suffer have their foundation in the mind. Now, I'm not saying people are just plumb crazy. When we look at mind illnesses, stress, anxiety. Is there a lot of anxiety today? There is. The neurologist I was talking about last night, I asked him, I said, Arvo, are you seeing more and more anxiety? He says, absolutely. More and more people are coming with anxiety. I'm seeing more and more people come with anxiety, having some major issues of anxiety. And we'll talk about some things to do for anxiety a little more in depth this afternoon maybe, and a little this morning also. So when we have stress, when we have anxiety, when we have depression, when we have bipolar, when we have schizophrenia, all those guys, can that cause other health issues? It sure can. What is stress? Stress is the body's response to a real or perceived threat or stressor. So let's say you're going down the interstate here and you're just booking it down the interstate. You're doing about 85, 90 miles an hour. And you're going along, and all of a sudden this fella pulls out and he turns on his blue lights. And he starts coming up towards you. Is anything going on up here? Yes? But then he flies by you and he pulls the guy over in front of you. Were you in danger? He didn't pull you over. Why were you upset? It was a perceived threat. Have you ever had perceived threats? Absolutely we have. So stress is the body's response to either a real threat or a perceived threat or stressor. Stress is our body's internal alarm system. It's God's alarm system to say, slow down, slow down. Do sometimes we go wide open when we don't need to be? Do sometimes we get real tore up? Y'all call it tore up? Do you ever get tore up about something and you don't really need to be tore up about it? And God said, slow down. I got it. Stress prepares the body to take action. What do we call that? That's right, fight or flight. Yes. And so, do y'all have bears up here? No. We got bears where I live. And if, bears aren't really that bad, unless it's a mama bear with cubs. You leave her alone. But the other bears, they're pretty well going to leave you alone. But if a bear does come after you, your body goes into something called fight or flight. And we'll talk about what happens physiologically when we go into that fight or flight. There's three types of stress. There's acute stress, episodic stress, and chronic stress. American Psychological Association. Three types of stress. So what is acute stress? Immediate onset, which forces the body into an immediate reaction, a minor traffic accident, an argument, impending deadline. Do you ever have, someone come up and say something and it just flies all over you? Does that ever happen? And then you what? Respond, right? That's an acute stress. You have a hospital, which a hospital is an acute center. That's where people, have a wreck or whatever. Obviously you have other issues that go in there, but usually it's acute issues. Then episodic stress, acute stress which occurs frequently. Escalating demands for personal time and attention. Do you ever have that happen where people do you ever feel like you're being pulled from every limb of your body? Everybody wants some part of you, and it just happens every day, and you're just about going, that's enough. I can only give so much. Well, that's what it's talking about here. Ceaseless worry and anxiety. Mamas, do you ever worry about the kids? The grandkids? It's ceaseless. You're constantly just worried, that something, worried about those kids. Are you worried about finances or worried about your health? That's what we're talking about this. Type A behavior, characterized by a competitive drive. Anybody know a type A personality? Are they hard to live with? Are they hard to work with? It's just go, 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 go. It just keeps going. And then they get up going and they don't stop until they fall over and say, okay, go to sleep. It's all the time. Aggressiveness, impatience, urgency. And then there's chronic stress, long-term stress, unrelenting job, family pressures, sleep deprivation, strained roles and responsibilities at work and at home. Chronic stress, kind of like COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. That's chronic because you're smoking all the time. If you see something called cold, C-O-L-D, they're actually trying to change it from COPD to COLD, chronic obstructive lung disease. I think he's just trying to get a name for himself, but there's an anesthesiologist who brought this up, and he's having some traction. And he doesn't think people know what pulmonary is, and so he changed it to COLD, cold. So if you see COLD in a diagnosis, they're talking about COPD. And chronic, you don't get emphysema from smoking a cigarette for once or for a week. You get it for long term, and that's what we're talking about here. Chronic stress, long term. It has been estimated that 75 to 90% of all visits to primary care physicians are for stress-related problems. Isn't that amazing? Job stress is far and away the leading source of stress for adults, but stress levels have also escalated in children, teenagers, college students, and the elderly for other reasons, including increased crime. Do we see that today? Violence, other threats to personal safety, pernicious peer pressures that lead to substance abuse and other unhealthy lifestyle habits, social isolation and loneliness, the erosion of family. Do we see erosion of family today? Absolutely, we're seeing an erosion of family. And religious values and ties. Now, I live in the Bible Belt, and so normally, I can speak pretty openly where I live about Christian beliefs. When I moved back to Tennessee 18 years ago, and I started going into factories and talking to them and helping them make lifestyle changes, I used the Breslov-Belloc study. And one of the questions there is I would ask, how are you spiritually? Would you say that you have no spiritual interest, that you're moderately spiritual, or you're extremely spiritual? And 18 years ago, when I would go into factories, and we're talking 300, 400 people, and they're all from there. How can I tell they're from there? They talk like me. And so you would have a few no interest, and you'd then have a few more with moderate interest, but most everyone was very spiritual. Today when I go in, And even the other day, I did it with one of the schools I went to, and even the kids had the exact same response. We're talking kids that were 5th to 8th grade had the same response. Now when I go and ask people their spirituality, there are some about the same that don't believe in God, no interest. There's just a few that are deeply spiritual. The majority are moderately spiritual. So we're seeing a decrescendoing of spirituality out there. And to be in the Bible Belt and see that happening, that bothers me. Because when I look at other areas that I go, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, I expect it there. But if the Bible Belt's doing it, who's lived in the Bible Belt? Anybody live down south? There's a lot of spirituality down there. It's changing, significantly changing. An erosion of family and religious values and ties, the loss of other strong sources of social support. It must be down lower for some reason. What's a new item that we're seeing that's really affecting not only kids but adults from a brain standpoint? Pardon? Isolation, yes. Pardon? Fear. We talked a little bit about it last night. It was one of the items that can cause the immune system to drop. Internet use. Think of Retzmus. You know, what Scott Retzmus is talking about. Do we see Facebook affecting stress? Do we see Twitter or tweet, whatever it's called, Twitter, there you go, Twitter, I see you smiling. You can tell I don't have that one. What was it? There's a cartoon when we were kids, there's a tweeter or something like that. But Facebook, social media has a significant impact on children, a significant impact on even adults that can cause stress. Is there a lot of bullying out there? There is. There's bullying out there. Or, Mommy, did you see that look what Sally has. Look what Sally did this weekend. Look where Sally's family took them to vacation. Or the wife says to the husband, look, Susie just got a new car. You know, look at Susie's house. Look how Susie decorated her house for Christmas. You see what's going on out there? It's having a huge impact on society, I believe. Okay, we are all subject to stressors. The amount of stress we experience depends on how we respond to them. How do you respond? You've got the brain. You got stressors that are financial, work, relationships, health, traffic, pollution, whatever. And how you respond depends on what happens when it goes through the brain. Is your response verbal, physical, mental? So someone comes up to you and they say something that is not nice. Do you reply with something that's not nice? Do you reply with a fist? How do you reply? That process is determined by your brain. Hopefully, your brain. Some people, I don't think it even goes through the brain. It's just like that. But how do you deal with it? How do you process that? When someone is mean as a striped snake to you, do you reply equally back with the same force? What determines that is your brain. And that's what we're going to talk about at 11 is how do you heal that thing? How do you make that as strong as possible? Dr. Walter Cannon's classic research, a cat confronted by a dog. He took a cat that hated dogs and he took a dog that hated cats. And he took the bottle on this cat and then he turned them loose. And that dog started chasing this cat. And then he snatched up the cat and he took its vitals. And here's what he found. Heart rate went up, respirations went up, blood sugar went up, clotting factor mechanisms went up, muscle function, there was more muscle reactivity. And what happened to the digestive process? Shut down. That's right. And so he then wanted to see what happened in humans. Are we like a cat? Or is it similar? Well, here's what happens in humans when we have stress. Heart rate goes up, blood pressure went up. The other day I went to a buddy of mine, we went to high school and college together. He's a surgeon. And so I went in, and a friend of mine who's his nurse, she took my blood pressure. It was 130-something over 80-something. I said, that's not me. I run around 117, 118, 116 over 72, 70, 68. Well, she says, well, Walt, you're sitting in a surgeon's office. What do you expect? So things can raise blood pressure, increase respirations, increase hormones and adrenaline, increase sugar in the blood, increase blood clotting mechanism, increase muscle function, a queasy stomach, nervous perspiration, headaches, sporadic eating, increased hunger, loss of appetite. It can go either way. You have people who just quit eating. You have people that, have you ever heard of stress eaters? Yeah, absolutely. Changes in sleep habit. You have some people that can't sleep and some people that just want to sleep. They don't want reality. Reductions in digestive process, reductions in immune system. And then there's a lady doctor up in Harvard. What was her position? I think she was I don't remember what her specialty was at Harvard. Well, anyway, she did a study on women. And she'd read a study on men where when men had prostate cancer, the amount of time between when there was a process set in place, their healing factor dropped. And she wanted to see, was it the same in women with breast cancer? So what she did a study at Harvard with women with breast cancer. And so women would come in, and whether it was from when the doctor palpated something and said, I think we need to take a look at here, let's get a mammo, let's get some other things, let's get a biopsy, until that process came up and they sat down with the oncologist, or they said, no, there's nothing. They measured those ladies, and they found that the healing factor just almost went to nothing in the body. And they measured these women every day, every single day, 4 times a day, to measure the effects on the body from how well the body was healing. Some, it took over 2 weeks before they had. Some, it was almost a month. And what happened was, let's say it went to the path lab, whatever happened, then it had to go, and then it went back, and then the results came back. And that whole process of going from this person to this person to this person, making an appointment, it could take 2 to 4 weeks. And this lady said, that is not healthy. This lady's got cancer possibly, and now you just shut down the healing in her body because of a period called unknown, called the period of unknown. And when you go into that period of unknown, major stress, your healing factor, according to Harvard's research, just goes down. And her plea to physicians across the United States was, and I was listening to her last night, I talked about ReachMD, and she was on there giving a summary of her research. She pled to the physicians, please be timely. Be responsible. If you identify a person has cancer, get that information so at least something can happen. What she found is even if you sat down with the oncologist and you had a plan, at least there was a plan, and healing factor went back up. Isn't that interesting? The power of the brain? Very, very interesting. Under stress, the body releases cortisol and adrenaline, which raises the blood pressure and prepares the body to do battle. When physical action is taken, the body uses up the stress hormone in the blood, reducing stress and relaxing the body. One of the best things to lower cortisol is exercise. Go out in there and take a walk. Take a power walk. Have you ever noticed that? I remember when I worked in healthcare, someone would get mad at the nurse, someone would get mad at the physician, someone would get mad at whoever. Well, I was the administrator. The buck stopped there. So they'd come to my office, and they would be angry. why something would happen. And I would say, okay, go take a walk. And sometimes I'd have to say, I need to take a walk because they got me going. And I said, let's go take a walk, 2 different places, and we'll come back here in 20 minutes and let's talk about the issue. That walk, majority of the time, calmed both of us down. It got the cortisol down. When physical action is not taken, such as when we're sitting at our desk, stuck in traffic, hurrying to finish our taxes before midnight, the stress hormones and chemicals in our body remains for a long period of time. So did you notice that blood pressure increase due to stress? Did you see that one? Stress is the number one cause of hypertension. When you look at hypertension, what are the causes of hypertension? I look at stress. I look at dehydration. I look at outside ideal body weight. I look at is there a lot of sodium intake? How's their kidney function? Kidneys are the switches that regulate the blood pressure. I look, do they have clogged arteries, atherosclerosis? Do they have hardening of the arteries, arteriosclerosis? And then I look, do they have heart issues? But the number one cause of hypertension that I'm finding is stress. Number 2 is dehydration. Number 3 is obesity. And then I see kidney function is a big issue. Stress does what? Stress raises cortisol, dumps potassium. When you raise cortisol, dump potassium, blood pressure goes up. I had a buddy of mine, a physician one time, call me. He said, Walt, I've got another physician buddy of mine. He's got some major blood pressure issues. He said, I was doing some reading and it said, if you will, that during low potassium will cause hypertension. Do you recommend a good potassium source? And I said, yeah, blackstripe molasses. That's a good source. Tablespoon twice a day. He said, okay. So he got some, had his buddy do it, and it helped him. But he was still thinking as a doctor. He was still treating signs and symptoms with stuff. Though healthier, he was still looking at signs and symptoms. He wasn't getting to the root cause. What was probably the root cause of dumped potassium? Stress. He needed to go back and find out what those stressors are. What was his body's, did he have a healthy body? Did he have enough B vitamins, lithium? Did he have enough magnesium? Did he have what it needed to deal with the next stressor? No, he was just treating the signs and symptoms. And many times that's what we do in healthcare. Stress affects the onset, treatment, or recovery from the following diseases and conditions: cardiovascular disease, cancer, angina. Angina, y'all know what angina is. It's heart pain, chest pain. There's 3 different kinds of muscles in our body. The heart is a specific different kind of muscle of its own. And the heart has an alarm system. It's a real sensitive alarm system. If it doesn't have adequate flow of blood, it goes off and it causes pain. Well, that's to stop you from what you're doing that's making the problem. So what happens is if you have, say, atherosclerosis and you've got a vessel that has major blockage, and then you get real stressed, or you're climbing the stairs, you're running, and it's hurting. Well, what's happened is you don't have enough blood flow for that event, and so God said, stop the event, and He gives you heart pain, so that makes you stop. And so we're blessed that God gave us that. That's angina. Diabetes, tuberculosis, rheumatoid arthritis. I had someone call Tuesday about tuberculosis. You don't get that call very often. Rheumatoid arthritis, hypertension, ulcers, AIDS. Wait a minute. How does stress give you AIDS? I thought that's a bloodborne pathogen. Well, yes. Bloodborne pathogen causes HIV. And then with major stress, it makes the HIV can turn into full-blown AIDS. And that's what's happening. Muscle-related conditions, allergies, common colds, warts, skin rashes, loss of hair, graying of hair. Stress can cause that. Where's the real danger? Acute stress or chronic stress? Chronic stress. It's that where the adrenaline's up all the time, the cortisol's on the time, the potassium's dumped all the time. Why? Because you're running from the bear all day long. Anybody know anybody running from the bear all day long? Sure. What about all night long? Do people have bad nightmares at night? Does it still affect you? Have you woke up at night from bad dreams and you're just all uptight? Same thing's going on physiologically. And so people are causing their body to be in this state chronically, therefore causing those other diseases. It's enough to have to deal with the stress. But what are you doing to the rest of your body also? Chronic, unrelieved stress causes the damage. Mental effects of an ongoing stressor: mental fatigue, loss of spontaneity, creativity, confusion, forgetfulness. Have you ever been just plumb stressed out and can't remember nothing? Sure. Difficulty making decisions. Have you ever been a new mom and your child is sick and you're all worried? Do you remember that? I remember our first son, Walter. When he gets sick, we're to the doctor's office, or if it was after hours, it was to the emergency room. Remember that, moms, dads? But then Ashley come along, and okay, and it was a little, but then Carson come along. I mean, it was he's fine, don't worry about it. You know what I'm talking about? So as we look at difficulty making decisions, yep, we know we've seen that before. It's okay. We're okay making the decision. But when we first happened, then it's we're more anxious and more stressed. Anxiety, depression, lower self-worth, lower intellectual functioning, boredom, emotional hypersensitivity. Have you ever met people like that? I mean, you just look at them wrong and they think you're thinking something about them. Have you ever seen people like that? It's the people you don't take to a football game because they think people in the huddle are talking about them. They're just really, there's some people you look at, some people you got to take a 2x4 to knock them over and get their senses. But some people you touch them with a feather. And so that's how that happens. Feeling of isolation, alienation, tendency towards suppressed feelings, withdrawal, aggression. You ever see people with that? Aggression, quick temper, when they're stressed. Loss of control, increased risk-taking behavior, increased drug use and abuse. I heard a man the other day, he was talking, and he and his wife are having a fight, and he said, this is what causes people to drink. Not a good reason, but stress causes people to take those behaviors. Did you know, we talked about this last night, did you know that just 1 minute of anger can suppress your immune system for up to 6 hours, according to Dr. Neil Nedley? So that's the effects of stress on the body. I remember my first house fire. Who's ever been to Collegedale? Anybody been to Collegedale? Okay, there's a little town called Ooltewah. That's where my daddy was born, is Ooltewah. And my first house fire was in Ooltewah. It was a little 2-story house, family dwelling, downstairs, living room, bathroom, dining room. When you went in the door, stairs were in front of you, 2 bedrooms, and there may have been a bathroom. I don't remember upstairs. But anyway, 2 bedrooms upstairs. Small little house. Both bedrooms are on fire, and back then you didn't have to go through a lot of training. You just could join, and they'd hand you a pair of turnouts, and you get on the back of a fire truck on the tailboard, and there you went. We don't ride the tailboard anymore, and the other one is you got to have training before you go into a house fire. And so here we go. We get a call. I just joined. I get on the tailboard. I go to the fire, and they say, come on, you can come with us. And so the two guys go up. There's an officer and another guy, and I'm the third guy. And they're going up, the fire's upstairs, and they go in. They do the right side attack first. And they go in, and they're knocking the fire down, and it flashed. Out in the hallway, it flashed. And a flashover is where you've got about from here to the ceiling's on fire. It's about 1,200, 1,500 degrees. I'd never seen that before. I was scared. I mean, I went hauling down them stairs, stumbling, trying to rip my mask off. I was hyperventilating. Was there a difference in where I am today, 44 years later, 41 years ago? I'm 41 years later fighting fire? Absolutely. Well, it's just, first of all, I recognize what to look for. Smoke starting to roll down, spots of fire, cool it down, you don't have a flashover. Boom, put your fire out. Or if it does flash over, you're down low enough, not a problem, cool it down, you're okay. There's a difference in stress based on experience. Would you agree? Yes, absolutely. You look in your occupation. Y'all nurses, remember the first time you had a code versus a code now? Do you remember the first time teachers you went into the classroom? Were you stressed versus now? In any of our occupations, the same thing. And so as we look at stress can affect the body. What do we do? How do we treat stress naturally? And I'm going to give you a lot of prescriptions here, so I hope you have your paper to write these down. Here's another one. We had some a few minutes ago, and then here's another one. I tell you what, let's stand up. Do y'all know this song, A Merry Heart Doeth Good Like a Medicine? How many of y'all know that song? Okay, let's sing it. Are you ready? Y'all can help me sing. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Like a medicine is a merry heart. But a broken spirit dry up the bones. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Okay, let's sing it one more time. Those of y'all that hadn't heard it before, now you know it. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Like a medicine is a merry heart. But a broken spirit dry up the bones. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Is that true? Absolutely it's true. Y'all can sit down. Okay, I'm going to try standing for a while, see if that does a little bit better. Okay, that's another prescription. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. I was reading something yesterday, and it was talking about, someone had put up, and it was talking about, are you a duck or are you an eagle? Did anybody read that? Are you a duck? Did you read that? Wasn't that interesting? I was really impressed by that. Are you a duck where you go around quacking all the time, complaining? Or are you an eagle where you rise above what's going on? I thought that was quite interesting. A lot of folks are ducks out there today. Just run around quacking. Proverbs 17:22. Disease is sometimes produced and is often greatly aggravated by the imagination. Have you ever done that? Has the imagination ever done that? I was at a church one time. We had a church. I was in North Carolina. And for 2 reasons, we'd have big old potlucks. Well, then they said potluck's not a good idea. Let's call it fellowship dinner, so it's just not potluck, what comes. And so the lady said, we're having problems. One of the problems, we're just eating too much. And the other problem was, Sally didn't eat none of my food. Sally mad at me? Why didn't she eat my lasagna? She ate Susie's lasagna. Is she mad at me? Do you know what I mean? Did you know that happens? So the ladies decided, here's what we're going to do. One, we're going to call it, we're going to have a theme. It's going to be Italian food. It's going to be Mexican food. It's going to be Southern food. Whatever it's going to be. And that was the theme for the day. And if it's Italian food and we got lasagna, only one lasagna come out at a time. One spaghetti come out at a time. One, so we quit eating as much. And the other was, so these folks quit having, because there was so much food, we weren't eating everything. These women were getting their feelings hurt. Well, disease is sometimes produced and is often aggravated by imagination. Mary Lou wasn't upset at Sally because she didn't eat her lasagna. She'd eaten Susie's, but it's just she didn't want to eat a whole lot. And sometimes we conjure up stuff in our head that isn't even true. Have you ever seen that happen? Have you ever done that? Yeah. Many are lifelong invalids who might be well if they only thought so. I had an aunt down in Hickson, which is outside of Chattanooga on Harrison Bay. Her husband, they owned a big old oil company in Chattanooga, and my uncle died. And my aunt, if you went to her to visit her, she didn't get out much. But if you went to visit and you had something wrong with you, she had it. And she'd travel up to Mayo, up to Rochester, and go get checked out because she knew she had that. I mean, it's just constantly. If someone else had it, I got it too. And she'd go on up there. Many are lifelong invalids who might be well if they only thought so. Does the brain affect our health? Absolutely it does. That's a good book if you ever have a chance to read it. Changed my occupation. Here's some more prescriptions for y'all. Courage, hope, faith, sympathy, love promotes health and prolongs life. Do you have courage? Do you have hope? Do you have faith? Are you sympathetic? Do you love people? Love is huge. A contented mind, a cheerful spirit is health to the body and strength to the soul. Do you have control of your mind? Or is it just plumb crazy going out, just out of control? Do you know there's people whose minds are out of control? There's some people, they can't, now I know men and women, we're different. Usually we just think of one thing at a time. You know what I'm saying? And that's challenging for my wife. Because she's thinking about 5 things at once. And she'll do a sentence and she'll cover several things in that same sentence. Sometimes we just got to slow things down, you know what I'm saying? And just concentrate on one thing. FedEx, the CEO of FedEx is a lady. And for several years ago, there's a thing that we need to multitask. Well, she found out that multitasking is not as, the quality is not as good in multitasking as getting a job done at a time. And she has now told FedEx employees, let's get a job done at a time. Yes, we have to multitask sometimes, but let's not just have a whole list of things open and try to half-heartedly do everything. Let's get that project done, get this project done. A contented mind, a cheerful spirit is health to the body and strength to the soul. And so sometimes we just got to control that brain, calm that brain down, where it's just thinking of this and that and this and this and this. Bring it on, just bring it down together. Gratitude, rejoicing, benevolence, trusting God's love and care are health's greatest safeguards. Do you have gratitude? Are you happy for what you have? Or do you wish you had Sally's house? Sally's husband? John's job? Rejoicing? Are you rejoicing or are you just always complaining? Benevolence. What's benevolence? We learned that last year before last in Sabbath school? Giving. Do you give to people? Or are you selfish and keep it all to yourself? And trusting God's love and care. The relation that exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. One is affected, the other sympathizes. The condition of the mind affects the health to a far greater degree than many realize. Many of the diseases from which men suffer are the result of mental depression, grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust. All tend to break down life's forces and to invite decay and death. So these are things not to do. I remember my father-in-law used to tell me, he would say, a person who doesn't trust you, be careful. They might not be a person to trust themselves. Do you have grief, anxiety, discontent, not happy? You're not happy with your job. You're not happy with what people do. You're not happy with yourself. We can be our worst enemy. Can we not? Yeah. Mary Lou will ask, well, how'd you do on this? Well, I could probably have done a little better here, 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 and here. That's just the way I am. I'm always trying to improve. And that can not be good for us. Do you have guilt? Is there something that's happened that you have guilt on? How can I manage my stress? There's controllables and non-controllables. You can take a piece of paper and write down all of your stressors. All of your stressors. And I encourage y'all to do it. And then take another piece of paper and draw a T. And on the left side of the T, on the top, put controllables. And on the right side, put non-controllables. Now, who's in accounting? Anybody in accounting, bookkeeping? Okay. You know the difference in controllables and non-controllables. Taxes are non-controllables. You just ain't got a choice. Or you go to jail. But whether or not you have your lights on, where you have your thermostat, what kind of food you eat, what kind of car you buy, those are all controllables. So what you want to do is look at this list of stressors and put them either under controllables or non-controllables. I know this lady. Her son shot a state trooper. Went to prison. She was told she'd never see him again. Never even hug him again. I can't imagine. I can't go there. I can't imagine that. And so I encouraged her to do this. Write that on the non-controllable. Does crying, fretting do anything about it? No. Yes, she can call him. Yes, she can send him letters. But she can never go see him again, she said. I can't imagine that. Or so she says, she can't see him again. So what you do is you put the non-controllables over here. Are there things that you worry about that you just can't fix? Are there? And you spend a lot of time worrying and fretting and crying and it isn't doing any good. And then on the other side, the things that you can do something about, you write them over here. And then you take that piece of paper. And you tear it in half. Now this one, the non-controllables, you go sit down with God. You say, okay, God, I need your help. There ain't a lick I can do about these. Will you take these? Will God take those? Yes, He will. And you give them to Him. Now here's the problem. Many people go back and try to take them away. Once you give them to Him, give it to Him. Now, does that mean it's never going to confront you again? Oh, it's going to come back. Satan's going to come back and he's going to go, this is your list. This is your list. And what do? You say, in Jesus' name, Satan, get thee behind me. Those are God's problems. Now go on, get out of here. Go talk to God about them. They ain't mine. Go on now. Now this list that you have of controllables, sit down with God and say, God, take my hand and help me through these. If you can mentally do that, you have accomplished a lot. I'm true. It's very true. So what are some controllables? Nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, trust in God. But Walt, that's just them old 8 laws of health that Grandma talked about or Mama talked about or they talked about in school. Have we seen those so much that we just discard them? Have you ever taken a test before and where you had to circle the little dots? And the teacher comes and lays down a piece of paper on top of it that has holes punched in it. And they go, if you don't have a black spot there, they put a red spot there. Have you ever had that? It's the grading key. That's the key to health, y'all. That is the key to health. I had this couple come in from Knoxville a couple years ago, and they were in their mid-60s, about to retire. They both, husband and wife, had worked in healthcare the whole career. And she goes to the bathroom, and he's sitting there, and I have this chart that my son made me. It has the 8 laws of health, pictures, and those words written in there. And he's staring at it. And he goes, "That's the key." I said, "Pardon? You want to hear what's going on behind their statement?" "Pardon? What do you mean?" He goes, "That's the key to health." "What do you mean?" He goes, "I've worked in healthcare my whole career. That is the key to health." Isn't that interesting? He'd never seen the list before, but he identified it. He saw it. That made horse sense to him. So many times we've seen this list, but we just ignore it. I can sit down with a person, and I'll first say, "Tell me your health concerns. Tell me your health problems." And then I go through this list. What do you eat for breakfast? What time do you eat breakfast? What do you eat for dinner? What time do you eat dinner? What do you eat for supper? What time do you eat supper? Do you eat between meals? And then I'll go on and tell me about your exercise program. How often do you exercise? What do you do for exercise? And I go through each individual one of those items. By the time I'm finished, I can pretty well tell you why they came in with those health problems. Now, why is this list so powerful? Because it works. Even deeper. Why is this? What? Creation. Where did we get this list from? I've got a Chevy pickup truck. And if I want to figure out what's wrong with it, do I use a Mercedes manual? No. Do I use a Ford pickup truck manual? Do I use a Dodge pickup truck manual? I use a Chevy pickup truck, a 2007 classic Chevy pickup manual. That's the year it is. I need to see what the manufacturer said. What is this? It's the manual. It's the manual God gave us. And as we said last night, we got this information almost 160 years ago. Almost 160 years ago. Next year will be 160 years. Sometimes when you hear something so often, you don't appreciate it. But I tell you, this is huge. When you follow these, correct those issues. Now, tomorrow, we're going to be doing hydrotherapy. If a person comes in with a bad wound, and let's say they have osteomyelitis in that wound, that's infection in the bone. Just sitting down, eating a whole food plant-based diet, drinking adequate water, exercise, is that going to deal with that problem? No. But what if I used hydrotherapy? Does that fall in here? Under what? Water. And what if I juice them? Where does that fall? And what if I give them allicin for the osteomyelitis? What does that fall under? And what if I do a salve of golden seal, myrrh, frankincense, pine sap, and aloe vera? What does that fall under? Trusting God, yes. Also nutrition. I'm topically, transdermally getting that nutrition into this tissue by putting that salve on there. So do you see how sometimes people, when they look at this and they say, well, there's health issues, I'm just going to just eat a healthy diet, get my exercise, and they surfacely look at this, you can't get down deep enough. You've got to get deeper into where you get into the juicing. Last night I talked about Mary Lou. Now I don't know where this one falls, but I talked about her, when she had breast cancer. Yes, we were doing the juicing. Yes, we were doing the poultices, and then we did the bee stinging. The doctor had us do, and boom, the cancer went away. But we got to get deeper than just even these items here. And unfortunately, just being here just 2 days, I can't really get that deep. This afternoon, we can kind of get a little deeper as we look at the physiological effects of herbs. And we'll look at that this afternoon, the physiological benefits of herbs and what they do. So it goes deeper than just that. So as we look here, let's see here. We're going to run out of time. Let me share here. When you look nutrition-wise, when you are stressed, you go into fight or flight. When cortisol goes up, you dump a lot of stuff. You dump B vitamins. You dump lithium. You dump magnesium. And so, who's read, some of y'all, we talked about it last night, Neil Nedley's book, Depression: The Way Out. Excellent book. And so in there, Neil talks about the proper food, the foods that have these nutrients in it. But if you have so much stress, you may not be able to get enough, and you have to supplement. And I mentioned last night about this old doctor at Florida North back in 1978. Yeah, 1978. He told me, he said, Walt, if you want to help a patient with stress, he said, use B vitamins. And I found him to be very true. So when I was taking nutrition from Dr. Campbell at Cornell, I asked Dr. Campbell, I said, because Campbell's all into getting it from the food, and I'm with him there. But I said, Campbell, this is the results I get. If I do B-complex 100 and do one each meal, I get some really, really major results when I'm dealing with stress, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar. And tell me a food that I can get that much B vitamins. And he said, Walt, there's not that much, and you can't get that much from food alone. Yes, food has B vitamins in it, but to get what you're after there, he says you're going to need to supplement. So there's times that just the food alone isn't enough, and we're going to have to supplement with some extra nutrients, as Nedley says in Depression: The Way Out. Lithium. Who's ever heard of using lithium as a supplement? Not the drug lithium, not the synthetic, but at 300, 400, 600 milligrams, but just the lithium orotate, the lithium aspartate. It's phenomenal. It really is. We use it for dementia, for helping with preventing dementia or treating dementia. When Alzheimer's patients get into an Alzheimer's rage, they'll give like 100 milligrams of lithium orotate, and that will calm that patient down. Well, there's an element called, it's like you got zinc and copper, there's an element called lithium. And our bodies require lithium, and we dump lithium when we're stressed. And so by getting that, supplementing that lithium, there's aspartate, but I like orotate better. 5 milligrams, one each meal is amazing. I had this guy come in one time. He owns his own business up in Greenville. And he had some major depression and at times suicidal. And so he came to me to see if I could help him. And I had recommended B vitamins and lithium, magnesium, and he'd gone back to his attending. His attending goes, that guy up there down in Newport, he don't know what he's talking about. Your lithium's fine, and I'll prove it to you. Let me draw your lab, and I'll show it to you. We drew the lab, and what happened? His lithium was bottomed out. And so he came back, and he said, I need more lithium. And I'd only read up to 40 milligrams a day at that time. And I said, that's all I can recommend at this time. I don't want you to be hurt. It didn't do it. So he comes back, and I said, I don't know anymore. We know your lithium's low, but I've not found any research at that time to say we could do more. And so he went to another fellow, and that fellow had him taking over 100 milligrams a day, and poof, right out of the depression. No depression, period. So then he called one day, and he says, Walt, I'm not doing good. I said, what's wrong? He says, I'm just not doing good. I said, have you been taking the lithium? He goes, all I can remember is to call you. That's it. I need to take the lithium. So now Mary Lou and Walter and the other folks at work know if this man ever calls, stop me in whatever I'm doing. I don't want him in a suicidal state. Put him on the phone with me, and I'll just say, how you doing? Not good. He'll tell me, have you taken the lithium? That's all he needs. He just can't remember that. Oh, okay, I'll do it. And he takes the lithium, boom, he's right out of the suicidal tendencies. He's right out of the depression. It's amazing. Who's heard of lithium springs or lithium water in Europe, they'll have lithium springs where people go and, if you got the, mineral springs that people bathe in, well, there's lithium springs that people go in and it transdermally gets into their tissue like mineral springs, or they would drink the lithium water. And it's just an element that our body needs like zinc or copper or whatever. And another one really, really huge is magnesium. See, when we're stressed, we talked about this last night, is when you're stressed, the body dumps magnesium to protect the cells, buffer the cells from the harmful effects of adrenaline. So God dumps this fire extinguisher full of magnesium throughout the body. And when we're stressed chronically, we're dumping magnesium. We're dreaming bad, we're dumping magnesium. And magnesium is needed for brain function. It's actually called the depression medication. Magnesium is called the depression medication because it helps so well with depression. It helps significantly with stress also. It helps with over 75, or at least 75% of muscle pain is due to magnesium deficiency. It's huge. Magnesium deficiency is number one. Restless leg, Charlie horses, those guys. Magnesium deficiency, dehydration, potassium, and then iodine. And yes?
Is there magnesium in blackstrap molasses?
There is. Not much, though, but there is. Yes, there's magnesium, there's manganese, a lot of potassium, but not enough for what we're talking about here. Good question. So, trying to think there. The magnesium. Pardon? Yeah, oh, thank you. Appreciate that. So I'm seeing more and more iodine deficiency. I've got a friend of mine, he's an ER doc just out a couple counties away, and he said, well, more and more patients are coming into the ED that are having leg cramps, leg pain, and when I draw labs on them, the iodine is low. I'm sorry, correction, the iron is low. The iron is low. And where do we get iron? Okay, where else? Anybody cook with an iron skillet? Yeah, y'all know what an iron skillet is? We call it an iron. An iron skillet? There's a lot of iron in there. A patient who has too high of iron, you tell them they can't use an iron skillet because it leaches iron out, and so you got to stop using the iron skillet. Blackstrap molasses, excellent source of iron. Excellent source of iron. That's a go-to. You can use Hemoplex, which is a real good product, but by Nature's Plus. But I first try the tablespoon twice a day of blackstrap molasses. So your magnesium deficiency, your water deficiency. I got a call one day, one morning, tones go off, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning. The elementary school daughter found her mother in the bathroom. She'd OD'd. So I go to the house, and the lady's out, plumb out, and unconscious, non-responsive to painful stimuli, totally out. So I woke her up, and then she was crazy woman. It took 3 of us to hold her down going to the emergency room. I actually had to take the straps off of her feet because she was moving so much I was afraid it was going to tear the tissue off her legs. Get to the ED, and the physician says, she goes, I ain't dealing with this. I'm sending her to Knoxville. Intubate her. Shipped her to Knoxville, to UT. Fortunately, she did that because she'd gone there prior with the initial issue that she started taking she had gone in with leg pains and to the ED, and they had given her narcotics to deal with the pain. She got hooked on the narcotics and became an addict and overdosed that night. She gets to UT, and UT found out the only problem was she was deficient in potassium. That's all the problem was. So sad. Fortunately, she went to UT. So as we look at these nutrition-wise for stress, amino acids are important. The B vitamins, vitamin C is important. Magnesium, potassium, phosphorus. We dump these guys. And so we need these guys to help our brains, to help our bodies deal with the next stressor. Yes, there's herbs, and we'll talk about those this afternoon. We've run out of time that can help with stress. But two I'd like to identify real quick, and that is lavender and vetiver, Vetiver, vetiver. We'll talk about those this afternoon. And those are amazing, amazing on helping a person with stress, anxiety, and bipolar. Really, really good for bipolar also. But anxiety, I see huge, huge benefit. The lithium is super, super good. The lithium ortate for bipolar also. So, yes.
How do you give lavender?
So what you do,
Put it in the diffuser,
you could,
give it topically,
both. You can put it in the diffuser, or you can take and topically, and you can use it neat without a carrier oil. Put 1 drop of lavender at where you feel your pulse. It's going to go in the blood transdermally, like a nicotine patch or a nitro patch. It's going to go right into the blood, rub it here, and then you breathe it. It goes into the lungs, it goes into the blood. Then I'll put 1 drop of vetiver. Now, the lavender drips real easy. The vetiver, you better have patience. It's very viscous, and the viscosity is very high. And finally, it drips on. Rub it, and just breathe it. The two of them together, and I mean, I'll see a person just calm right down. I had a guy come to me. I was doing a program like this in Crossville, Tennessee, and it was Sunday. And he came up. He was a Vietnam vet. Left eye was just going like this. He says, I'm having a PTSD attack. Can you help me? And he was just shaking. And I said, try this. And so he didn't know me. And so I did it to myself. And then I said, well, how often do you go into a physician with extreme PTSD or anxiety? And the doc says, well, let me show you what the medicine does to me first. No, they're not going to do that. In God's simple remedies, we can do that. Hydrotherapy, well, let me show you what hydrotherapy will do so you're not scared. It's safe. And so he put it on. He came back, I would say 4 minutes later. I don't think it was a full 5. I had quit going up and down. And he said, it's over, totally. I had a lady come in one day. I was at the register. I had about 4 people in line. Walter was sitting over by the herb cabinet helping a lady. And this lady walks in, and literally she was about to explode like Mount St. Helena. And I mean, you could tell. And I said, ma'am, are you okay? And she was just, no. And so I said, excuse me just a minute. So I went over to her. I didn't need to have her exploding there. So I went up, ma'am, what's wrong? Can I help you? She says, I'm having extreme anxiety. I said, just a minute, I'll be right back. So I went and got mine. I use it. I have Tourette's syndrome. Now, you wouldn't expect that, would you? When I was 17, someone ran over me on a motorcycle, ran a stop sign and ran over me, and I got a concussion. Out of the concussion, I got Tourette's. But I'm able to manage it for the most part with B vitamins, magnesium, and lithium. When I start having challenges, I'll use the lavender and the vetiver, and that will calm me down from the Tourette's. And so I have my own bottle of lithium, I'd have that too, but the ortate, but the lavender and the vetiver. And so I put it on me, and I did it. I said, can I do it for you? And so she said yes, and she did it. So I said, I'll be right back. Need to give some time. Went back, finished helping checking this lady. I wasn't even finished checking this lady out fully, or just as she was getting ready to leave. I looked at Walter. He's finished with the lady, and I gave him a cue to help this lady over here quick. So he went over. He started talking to her, and she sounded like a total different lady. I mean, a total different voice. And I walked over, and I said, are you okay? She says, what did you just do to me? I said, pardon? She says, I'm calm. Never in that amount of time have I been able to calm down from an anxiety attack. And so it's amazing that what God has given us that are simple, safe, that's not dangerous. So let's close with prayer, and then we'll go to our next service. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you so much for your love and your care. And Lord, we ask that you will give us a desire, a hankering for learning these ways of taking care of our bodies. And Lord, we ask that you will then bless. Bless as we apply these simple remedies, and that we can address this issue of stress, that our bodies are healthier, and that we're not tormented by these things, that we can be more effective as your workers. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.